Good afternoon. I am Michael Stender, representing the Student Veterans of America chapter at Bristol Community College. I am interviewing Richard W. Holmes on Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, at the Fall River Community Media Studio at Bristol Community College in Fall River, Massachusetts. Also present with us are Steve Rise and Yahina Pruzino, who are operating the cameras, and Denny Cosmo of the Joseph A. Marshall Veterans Center. This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Richard, how you doing?
Nice to meet you, Mike.
Great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. Where are you originally from?
Onset, Wareham, Mass.
Wareham, Massachusetts. All
Yep.
right. And when you enlisted, were you drafted or did you just choose to enlist?
No, I ended up enlisting, but I didn't know my draft number was pretty low, and being from a military family, my father was World War II veteran and POW. I just thought it was my responsibility, and he didn't have the money for me to go to college or anything like that, and I figured I'd control my own destiny and enlist myself. So I had long hair and I cut it all off and started working out a little bit more and went over to New Bedford to they had all the different stations there, the Marines, the Navy, Air Force, recruiters, So I went over there thinking I was going to join the Marines, and so I took whatever test you had to take with them, and then my uncle, who was an officer in the Navy during Korea, said, "What are you, crazy? You know where you're going to be sleeping, in the dirt and in the tents, and you know where you're going to be going?" And I went. He said, "Well, the Marines is part of the Navy, so whatever you took with them, when you go back over there, talk to the Navy. You'll be on the ship, you'll be safe." I went, "Okay, makes sense." So when I went back over there, the Marines saw me walk in, and I went, "I got to talk to them for a minute." So I went and talked to the Navy guys, and ended up going down that path.
All right. And from there, how long did it take for you to get to boot camp at that point?
I think by the time you get through all the swearing in and all that stuff there, and then first time you're ever on a plane, flying to Chicago, and then sitting around there, and then people grab you on a bus, and off you go to. So it was probably a month or two, maybe, from the time that I enlisted.
Very similar to my experience. I went in, and then maybe 3 months later, I was on the same bus going to Great Lakes.
Right.
So very similar.
Yeah.
And
Wasn't very smart. I went in February,
oh no, the snow.
It was a little cold, but I was used to the cold, but I felt bad for all the people from down south that ended up there with me.
Never saw snow before.
And that cold,
Yeah, no. So how long were you in boot camp for, and what was that experience like for you?
Piece of cake. I mean, I thought it was easy. I mean, I expected actually a lot more but I was in good shape anyway, I mind my P's and Q's and did what I was told to do, and I get along with the company commander very well. He invited a few of us over to his house at some point.
You can do that.
Yep,
Wow.
and we had a couple beers with him, there was, other than the cold and being out on the grinder at 4 o'clock in the morning, lining up to go to the chow hall, or when you did your laundry and had to wash it and hang it out in the freezing cold, but I didn't have to. I just had to hand it to all the tall guys. I felt bad for them because they had to hang everything up, 4 inches apart and whatever.
Wow.
But my experience in boot camp was, I thought it was going to be more physical. Wasn't that bad. Yeah.
So then after boot camp, what happens next? You went to technical school because you had your rate picked out?
Well, that's kind of a side story if you want me to go down that
Of course.
path. I apparently had a high aptitude. I did very well in math in high school, and they wanted me to go on a nuclear-powered sub, and that's what they were trying to talk me into when I was in New Bedford before I even signed. And it was a 6-year program to do that, to be an electrician's mate. And I went, naively, well, I tell you what, I'll sign up for the 4, and if I like it, I'll stay for the other 2. Yeah, I remember the guy did just that. And he said, sure, sign right here. And I did.
Mm.
And then when I went to the officer for swearing in listing, and the guy was sitting up in a high chair, and I was over in New Bedford, and he goes, okay, son, you're here for, and you're in this, whatever the program was, you're in for 6 years as a nuclear-powered sub. And I went, no, I told him I'd stay for 4, and if I liked it, and he went, yeah, sign here. And I did. So when I got into boot camp and I took all those battery of tests, I think it was like the 4th weekend or something, somewhere around that point, there was a whole bunch of tests you had to take.
Okay.
Made up languages, sonar. I mean, everybody had to go through the same routine. Apparently I did well through that process because I was invited to a off-site meeting with a bunch of guys with scrambled eggs on the hat, and watched a video when I was invited to attend a prep school for 6 months, and if I got through that, then I could go to the Naval Academy.
Wow.
Now that's 9 years.
It's a big
It
extension.
keeps building, you know. And I wasn't too sure about that one. In hindsight, I wish, you know, but life takes its course. I mean, if somebody had pulled me aside and said, son, you know, this is an outstanding opportunity. But be that as it may, before I knew it, I was back, and I had to sit down because a nuclear-powered sub, you had to get a top security clearance.
Yes.
So I was in a cubicle somewhere with some guy in civilian clothes. I don't know if it's FBI, I don't know who it is that does that thing. But all I saw was the top of his head and had a pen in his hand, and he's asking me all these questions. And one of them that made a pause was, have you ever smoked marijuana? Of course, this is back in the early 70s. And I kind of paused, and I went, yes. And he stopped, and he left. I could see a bunch of guys in a glass booth talking.
Uh-oh.
He came back over, sat down, picked up his pen, and said, how many times? And then, it seems like it's been an hour, and I said, 2 or 3.
All right.
Grossly underestimated, but at that time it was more experimentary, and that's kind of why I went into the military, to get away from all that life.
Yeah.
And the guy said, well, unfortunately, once is experimentary, more than that is a user. So we can't give you a security clearance.
Wow.
And I went, he said, but the good news was, and then he went, well, you're going to keep your higher rank, which I came in at, and your guaranteed A school was still there. He said, but we're going to have to drop you back to 4 years, and you're going to have to find another. I went, well, there's a couple, that's all sounding good so far.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do I do now then? He said, well, what about the Seabees? And I went, what's that? I had no clue, never heard the term before. And he said, well, it's a construction battalion. And then he went through all the maturations of fields, MOSs you could pick out. And he said, well, you're going to be an electrician's mate. You can be a construction electrician. They do telephone poles, and I said, sure, I'll try that.
And there we go.
Here we go. So with that, I was lucky because I got blue stripes, which everybody else had white, CB designation. So that's how that career path took off and went that direction. So when I got out of the A school, was in Davisville, Rhode Island, to learn how to be an electrician, how to climb telephone poles, which was a piece of cake for me. I'd climbed trees all my life. And learning how to wire a house and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when that got through, and we graduated from that program, you had 4 choices, I think, designation of places to go.
Mm.
And I volunteered for Vietnam, so I still thought it was the right thing to do. And so he said, okay, the battalions are in the West Coast for the alert battalions. So with that, and 1 or 2 other guys in my class, in fact, he was still a very good friend of mine, we ended up driving out to California, to Port Hueneme, and joined NMCB 5. at that point. They were overseas at that point, but so I got sent up. He got sent into the chow hall. I got sent up to a dynamite blasting school way up in the mountains somewhere.
Wow.
And not to learn that, but to just kill time. I guess. There was only like 6 of us there, and then they rotate a class up. But that was interesting to watch what was going on and stuff like that.
Yeah, they don't have schools like that anymore, so it's interesting to hear what they had during that time.
So that's how I ended up on that coast anyway. And then the battalion came back. Then I joined the battalion, and you meet everybody and get indoctrinated into the group and routine. And you did a lot of your training at with the Marine base down there, Camp Pendleton, and that's where you learned how to fire the 45s and M16s, and they had mortar ranges, how to throw a hand grenade, and
So when you got there, would you say there was a strong camaraderie between like the construction battalion guys? Like when they came in, were you like welcomed in right away? Did you have to like kind of earn your spot a little bit?
No, I had no problem phasing right in. The interesting thing, there's all walks of life. Even you noticed it in boot camp.
Yeah.
I mean, there was guys from college. There was guys that, literally could barely spell their name. I think you get 50 points on the forms if you just signed your name right.
Something like that. To this day.
And I met guys that, jokingly said they didn't see shoes until they were 10 years old, and they thought they could eat them or something. But they were from a variety of society thrown into a mix.
You meet everybody.
You meet everybody, and it's like anything else. If you treat me fine, I'm going to be fine.
That's the golden rule right there.
Yeah,
that's it.
I have nothing against anybody until they prove otherwise.
I always seen like the more like you're just good to everybody, cool, stand your ground and all that, try to form those like friendships really early, you have an easier time in than like if you come in with some like past grievance for whatever and you try to like start drama within like the shop or the battalions, it's like, no, we don't do that here.
You don't do that, yeah. Yep.
Good. So when did you first deploy?
Excuse me, as I told you, my throat will go.
It's all right.
Doing all the military piece of the puzzle training at Camp Pendleton, and then it was in right around June we were the alert battalion, and part of it had already deployed to Okinawa. I was still back in Port Hueneme, California. A bunch of us still were, and we got word about we were mounting out, and you could see the hubbub in the base. Everything was just flying, and I was scheduled. Actually, I had hurt my knee, and I was scheduled for surgery, and I went to see the surgeon, and I said, "I'm going. I want to go." I was in the gym religiously getting that leg stronger in preparation for the surgery, and he checked it out, and he said, "I'm going to let you go, but don't forget you get a bad knee." I said, "Okay, no problem." So with that, we flew out. I remember Wake Island, and landed in the Philippines, and nobody told us where we were going. We had no idea.
Wow.
I was in the back of a C-141. It was packed with all of us. In front of me, I was in the back of the plane, but you faced towards the back, and there was pallets in front of me. And when we left Philippines, rumor mill started to say that we thought we were going to Vietnam somewhere, but then the rumor mill was Thailand. And I went, Thailand? Never heard of them going there. It was never on the media or on the news. So this was kind of hush-hush going there. And they don't tell you anything when you land. I had an M16 in my hand. No bullets, but I had an M16. The plane landed, and it never stops. They don't tell you that either. So the back end opened up. The Air Force guys shoved the pallets off as it's rolling.
Whoa.
And they said, "Get out." Huh? said, "Can we bullets or something?" You know, I said, "Get out!" And I was right there, you know. So I just ran out and I hit the deck. You know, just got down. I didn't know what was coming at me.
God.
And we all piled off, and the plane never stopped. It just went down, pivoted, whew, gone.
Whoa.
Because they didn't want to get attacked while them. And I looked off to the side into the woods side and the jungle basically, and there's people over there waving. So off we went that way, and it was, as it turned out, it was I think it was a runway from World War II that was built, but there was no infrastructure around it. There was no buildings, no nothing. It was just in the jungle. And Marines were there before us to protect us as we came in to build the base. And fortunately, not too far away was the Thai Special Forces camp too. So we were well protected. So, I mean, we were streaming in with all the heavy equipment and all that, and had to clear the jungle and stuff like that. And that's where the Agent Orange came in, because we had to spray, you know, around to kill vegetation, whereas you were building strong back tents, raised tents off the ground out of plywood in just big canvas tops. And so we built those. They were building those fast, and you got to build a mess tent. You got to build, you know, just for us to get started, and then it was starting the runway and power plants and, you know,
It's a whole
power distribution, the whole thing.
It's a whole operation.
The whole operation, yeah. So it was 7 days a week. Some of the days it was 120 degrees. You get into monsoon season, it was pouring buckets, and I was amazed that they gave you Arctic sleeping bags.
Arctic ones.
Yeah, and you just have a cot, you know, which is about this wide. So I don't need much to sleep on anymore. You learned that one.
Yep, no, me too.
And but when you went from 120 degrees down to 80 at night, and you dropped 40 degrees, you'd be inside of that because you'd feel cold. Wow. You wouldn't think so, but you drop 40 degrees, that's a huge change.
Wow.
And so yeah, we worked, you know, you get on call and you'd be called out in the middle of the night, and I was, so it was a great experience, you know, building that base up.
Yeah.
You know.
And that was your first like big assignment, to build this base up and prep it.
Yep, because the air campaign was really ramping up at that junction. And if you look on the map where we were, it was right across to North Vietnam.
Wow.
It was not that far away.
So how many hours a day would you guys be working on this project? Was it all day? Was it 12 on, 12 off, and shifts?
No,
or?
it's every day, whatever, from probably 7 in the morning till whatever. Whenever they brought you back.
Yeah.
You know.
When the sun
But we
goes
were
down.
placing telephone poles, and telephone poles there were made out of concrete. So trying to climb, you couldn't climb like I was taught with gaffs and climbing wood. It was all holes that were pre-drilled in the concrete, so you had rebar, and you'd stick them in there and
Like
try
just
to
climb
climb
right
your
up.
way up.
Yeah. Wow.
And then stand on that and hoist stuff up and put the cross beams on, and then start stringing power lines and all that stuff. So I did a lot of time that, but as it came later, I mean, not to jump ahead too much, but you know, I've been dealing with skin cancer ever since, because I just wore shorts and your combat boots, and
Yeah, you're
you're out in 120 degrees in the sun, all up on the top of a telephone pole.
exposed to all the elements
yeah,
up there too.
yeah. Yep.
So how long were you there for?
We got there in June. I think the main body left somewhere around, right around Thanksgiving, or before that, maybe October. I stayed, volunteered to stay for the delayed party. And at that point in time, the Marines started leaving their tents and moving in to where we used to live. And then I extended again for a delay and volunteered to stay longer, just to clean up some of the stuff that needed to get done. And I came full circle from what my uncle tried to talk me out of, because now I was in a tent on the ground, living with the Marines,
Like you talked
because
about.
they had already moved into the. And I went, well, this didn't work out right. So,
They said I'd be on a boat. Here I am.
so eventually, I can't remember when I left out of there, but I was one of the last to leave, I think, if not the last group
So when
to go back to Okinawa.
So Okinawa, was that like the home base for you guys at that point?
Yeah, that
being
was
deployed?
that was the alert battalion. They were all based out of Camp Shields out of Okinawa.
What was it like being over there?
Well, that was luxury living after you, 'cause
Well,
you
yeah.
had regular barracks and places to go, and enlisted men's club, and you could go to town and get a meal once a month when you got payday. I put most of my money into the bank. I only
Smart.
wanted enough in my hands to go out and eat once,
That's yeah.
because otherwise I'd spend it.
It's true. I mean, even these days, like once you get paid, everyone wants to go out in town and like
Right.
just blow that paycheck on whatever they can.
Yep.
But they don't understand. Like, no, the more you save this stuff up, guys, like, come on, like, food here and there, great, treat yourself. But like,
Yeah.
it's important to like really be financially secure while you're in.
Yeah.
Like,
Go to town and get a Kobe steak was like, whoo, that was something special.
yeah.
So that was the first tour of duty. That one.
And then what was the second tour?
When I got back to the States, they sent me back to Davisville, Rhode Island, for C school, and that was for telephone and power cable splicing. I don't know why I was picked for that, but I found out later. So I went there. There was probably about 10 of us there. I was by far the youngest. I was probably E3 at that point, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe first class, I can't remember. But it was working with hot lead, high voltage, for power cable splicing, and then you had to learn all about telephone with all those 9 million wires, all different colors, and how to figure that out and put that together. And I actually ran into my diploma the other day. It was I had like a 94 average. He said, "You by far the youngest and one of the highest scorers. So great job.
That's amazing.
So when I got through that, I flew back to California, and then from there the battalion had already been sent to Okinawa again. So I was on another plane with some other people and ended up back in Okinawa, only to find out that, oh, by the way, that training you just had, we need you to do the telephone system over on the base. It's all screwed up. Okay. I said, I don't have any of the stuff that I was taught to use. And where do I get that stuff? We don't have it. So with that, they said, Air Force people always have everything. So we went over to one of the big Air Force bases, and yeah, they had what I needed, and they just gave me bags or whatever I needed.
That was good.
Yep. And I had to start figuring it out. So I took old ammo cans to use as a junction box and mounted those on the side of a telephone pole, and then ran the wires down and looped it underneath for a water loop, and then bring them up in the hole in the bottom, and did all the work inside of there. I could splice everything else, but I had to ring out the whole system. So I was up on poles all day long. I was doing this by myself, and everything was going smoothly until I had to start interrupting into the company commander's office. I had to keep on ringing it out, and all of a sudden he was getting aggravated, and I said, "Sir, can you have somebody else pick up? I got to get through this."
Yeah.
It's going to take a while to figure it all out, but once I get done, you're not going to have any more problems. So I got through all that, and that's my first letter of commendation, I think, was that.
That's amazing.
I got and 3 over my time,
So
I
you
guess.
single-handedly fixed the entire system.
Right.
Wow.
Yep. And then back to the States again,
Right.
But
Whenever you came back to the States, was it kind of like different being back in the States after being away for a while? Were you able to adjust back into it pretty easily?
it was easy for me because I was single. It was with guys that were married. It was a big difference, for them. For me, it was just another place,
Just keep
didn't make
moving along
any difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think because of what I did with that base, when I was in Okinawa before we left, they were picking out a team for CB Team 0523, which was the one that ended up in Yap. And they only needed one construction electrician, and fortunately I was picked. So
On to the next adventure.
13 guys were selected, and they only needed one electrician just in case, and that was me. So I found that out before we came back to the States. So when I got back to the States, that team separated totally from the battalion, and we worked together as a team. They had to figure out if we could work together as a team. They were all watching you constantly for personalities. Could you get together along with each other and stuff like that?
And
cross training,
And
I had to learn how to do a builder. I had to teach them how to be an electrician. So everybody had to teach.
Because everyone has a different role. You had yours, and you being the one electrician, you have to learn their role. They have to learn your role in case someone goes down, God forbid.
Yeah, we had to learn outboard motors and stuff like that, which was in case we had to be on the water, I guess, but we never did. But so that was interesting cross training. But I learned how to operate heavy equipment, and stuff like that too.
That must have been fun.
Yeah. Well, in the States it was fun because it was all state-of-the-art stuff that was, it was huge, but it was pretty joystick, you could do it pretty easily. What I had to work with over in Yap was totally different.
With the state-of-the-art equipment, was it like just construction vehicles, like cranes or like loaders? Like what you got to work with?
Bulldozers, heavy, big cranes. That's what I was trained on,
Right.
in that rotation, and then they sent us down to Camp Pendleton again to work on. They were building, I think it was racquetball courts. So it was all cement block. We had to start building from the foundation up, and they wanted to see how long you could last. So guys started fading out at some point. It was just like 3 of us left at the end. It was dark out.
Yeah.
And I remember tripping over a string or something like that and fell on the ground and started laughing. We were just so tired, And we just stayed all in the same kind of little area. And every day a different person had to cook dinner with whatever supplies was there. You had to figure it out.
That's a fun little challenge.
Yeah.
What'd you make?
I couldn't tell you, but it was good, whatever it was. Because I used to cook, so I figure out stuff like that. So
not the worst cook in the group. You're good to go then.
Yeah. So we got through all that, and they did try to isolate one guy out. That they noticed. But the rest of the team stuck up for him.
That's good.
Actually.
That's what a team's all about.
Yep. So that was the getting ready for that 3rd tour of duty.
And that was over in the Yap, you said?
That was Yap.
Let's talk about that.
Well, it's in islands of Micronesia. It's about 500 miles south of Guam, if I remember correctly, and that's where we flew into Guam and were there for a few days to get to know the Air Force people and the people we were going to communicate with. And before we C-130, I think it was a special built C-130 that could land on a short runway. And then we flew into Yap. And of course the people there with the leis around your neck and all that stuff welcoming you. And we lived in a Quonset hut, basically. It was our, they had been there before, so we were replacing, I think, another team maybe. And there was a group from Korea there too. So there was, stone money was a big thing. They had stone money banks scattered about in the woods, and it looked like a big stone with a hole in the middle, and they're all of various sizes. So the bigger the stone, the more value, because there is no stone on those islands. It's all coral. So the natives, however they used to navigate in their canoes, used to go to Palau or someplace where there was stone, mine the stone. The hole in the middle was for them to put a rod through and carry it, put it on their canoe again, or whatever vessel they had. So, of course, if you get a bigger stone back, it had more value because that was a lot harder to do, you know?
Yeah.
And, sorry about that.
That's all right.
That's when they bring them back and they just stack them in the woods, and that was a money bank. And it was interesting that, I mean, they still weren't doing that, but you could walk around, but you didn't go anywhere near them, didn't touch those things.
Yeah, no.
And in the bank, but they could be used for collateral for people if they needed to buy something.
Gotcha.
And in the banks, they had like whale's teeth and stuff. I mean, I don't know, they were hanging on the wall, and talking to the banker, he said that was collateral if they needed to borrow paper money, you know.
Wow. It's a whole different way of
But it
living.
had that much value to them,
Yeah.
you know, that was like getting a loan, you know. So, I mean, there was some grass skirts and most of the guys, but there was a little bit more westernized. They had a little hotel there and stuff like that, but it was pretty archaic. The people themselves lived in pretty archaic, but there was a little downtown.
Wow. And like,
And, you know.
so like you bought some stuff from that area, correct?
Yep. Oh yeah.
You mind showing us a little bit?
Yep. The these all handmade by the local people, and these will almost like, this is what you carried your stuff in. You know?
Okay, so that's a bag right there.
So that's a bag. This is almost like a little purse that they gave me to have with it. But you can see the handiwork on those things is pretty neat.
It's tight.
Very tight.
Very tight.
And this was a belt that's made out of a turtle shell.
Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible.
And this
right here.
is made out of coconut husk. It's just a little decoration that you put on or whatever, and you know, that's the picture of what the stone money would look like.
And that's the hole you were talking about.
Yeah, hole in the middle.
Wow.
And just any number of little things that you would carry stuff in, and this piece of artwork, you know, that they had. But they used to carry. I mean, again, everybody figures something out. There was things called beetle nuts. Have you ever seen a lot of the natives or whatever in any pictures or movies, and they had the dark brown stained teeth? That was from beetle nuts, and beetle nuts grew up in a certain type of tree, and seeds about the size of a golf ball or smaller, you know, and green seeds. And they'd get a certain coral that they mined, and they grind it into a powder. It was like lime, strong, astringent to it. And the last piece was what they called gabui, which was like a pepper leaf. So they take that good-sized leaf, take that green beetle nut, and bite it to crack it in half, put it in there, and then take some of that lime and put it on top of it. And it would start making a chemical reaction. You fold it up and put it in your mouth and chew on it. And that's where it turned red.
Wow.
But that's, I mean, I tried it. You know, the company commander was a little bit concerned whether we should be doing that or not, because it did give you a little buzz. You know? And but yeah, they carry it and all this stuff. You know.
Wow. And what was the assignment over there for you guys?
Well, since there wasn't much for an electrician, I was either helping out any of the other departments, whatever they needed. But back to the equipment operator, they sent me way down the southern part of the island in order to get coral to make roads, which those guys were building roads. You had dredge coral, and you'd actually dredge it from the shoreline and make a peninsula out. So you dig on both sides and just keep digging your way out. And after a certain point, you'd use that and collapse yourself back.
Wow.
So now you have all this lined up,
Yeah.
okay? Because it was too high. You couldn't get trucks over to fill them up.
No way.
So they saw me, I guess they said, he can do this. Put me on this thing, and it was really mechanical. I mean, it was archaic, but it had swing lines with a bucket on the end with the big teeth in it, with the steel bucket. But everything was arms and legs and levers. So you had to swing it around, drag it in to a certain point, and then release it, let it swing out, then let that go, let it drop into the water, and then try to pull it back and dredge up coral. And then I'd swing it around, drop it over the further out, and did that all day long.
That's a process.
It was a lot on your legs, and it was because it was really old, and then the teeth would break, and you'd think it would heavy steel teeth, but they'd come down and re-weld it and all that stuff. And so I did that for a while, and then I was me and a builder, a carpenter. Him and I were selected. We were the two of the youngest guys, I think, to go to an outer island called Fais, F-A-I-S, to continue on a project that was stopped 5 years earlier, and was to build a schoolhouse out there.
Wow.
And on this remote island, I think it had 98 people living on it.
It's very small.
Very small. And it was no coral reef around it. It was just like a peak of a mountain. So the ocean was right up to the shore.
Yeah, I mean, so you, this builder, they picked you guys just to build the school up. Was there already kind of like the foundation there, or?
There was the previous team that had been there 5 years earlier got into some kind of a local incident with the natives, and so we were the first ones to go back there, and were told to mind our P's and Q's when we got there, and we were fine with it. And they had already done the foundation, the floor, and they had built a strong back tent again, a foundation out of plywood, raised for us to sleep in, for us to stay in, screened in. And we had a 55-gallon drum that was hooked up so you could take a shower, just from catching rainfall and drinking water. We had to put pills into to sterilize it. And so when we got there, my assignment was to continue that project,
And how long did it take for you guys to get that done?
Oh, we never completed it. I think we were discussing earlier that we had to get cement block there. We had to get bags of cement there. We had to get coral from the beach shoreline for aggregate. We had to get drums of water, and we were at the top of the hill. So all the supplies, the cement and the cement block, were brought in from a small barge from the boat that was anchored out there, and we had to wade out to chest deep or so and put a block on each shoulder and walk back into shore and put them down, and did this for about 8 hours. We had to do it as long as we could, and then the bags of cement too, which were, I can't remember how much they weighed, but
Probably heavy.
they were very heavy, and so we did that. We had to unload it as fast as we could. And then from that point, we had a little wagon with some wheels and a cart, basically. And we had to get the block from there all the way up this path to the top of the hill where we were located, and do that back and forth all for days.
Oh my God.
Just to get the stuff up there. And then go to the beach and rake up piles of coral to use as aggregate to mix with the cement, because there was no stone, and did that for days, bringing that back and forth, and then trying to get 55-gallon drums of water on a cart with a bunch of guys trying to pick it up and move it. And then all of a sudden you just got ready, okay, now 1, 2, 3, we had a cement mixer that fortunately worked, and then we had to build the columns, and the carpenter knew how to do that, and I just helped out. And then when it came time for the pour, it was like, okay, here we go, and you had to get it way up and pour it into there to have it come down. But
Yeah.
it was a project. We were, I don't know how many months. We were there for 3-4 months just to get a pour in. You know, it took all the work to get to that point.
And the locals received you guys pretty well when you got there.
Yeah, they used to bring us up food, and I used to, give them some stuff too. And they love sugar. I remember when we were leaving, because the team that was supposed to relieve us, unfortunately, one of the guys' fathers died, so he was shipped out. So that kind of came to an end. And I was giving stuff to the natives, and I had a bottle of maple syrup, and I gave it to one of the guys, and he picked it up and drank it down, the whole thing. And I went, "That's
No.
that's not what it's for." But they drank sugar water. They love sugar. The sweet coconuts. They'd climb up. We used to have coconut breaks. We had no coffee, so they'd climb up the trees and come down with green coconuts and just whack it. They all carried machetes, and then you just drink it.
Wow. No, that's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
from that, and also like building the whole airport back up. Like, what lessons did you learn from your experience? Because those are two definitely unique, different types of experiences right there.
It's just like you apply yourself to anything, you can accomplish most anything. I mean, it's just, it's like the adage. I became the man of the house when I was 12, and I was working on cranberry bogs, furniture stores, gas stations, from that point on. So, by the time I even got into the military, I'd been working for 6 years, So, and the old adage was, do it once, do it right, So
That's
if you're
it.
gonna tackle something, just focus on it, and work was secondary to me. I mean, I had no problem doing whatever you had to get done. So whatever I was assigned or the task was okay. What's next type of thing. So the hard work, yeah, it's hard work, but I did hard work.
Yeah.
So I had no problem with that. Sometimes the biggest problem I had most of the time was the people around me.
Because they don't have that same mindset as
Right.
you.
So, and if they had a higher rank than me, I remember being in Okinawa, we did something in a ditch, and the guy that was above me, he was a short timer. He was getting out soon or whatever, but he wasn't a worker. So he'd see the guys coming, the commander or one of the higher ups. I'd be sitting there, I'd be soaking sweat, and they'd see him coming, and he'd jump in and like he was working, and I wouldn't move. I knew what I had done, so I didn't have to impress anybody or fake somebody out.
Yeah.
So people like that, and I would say it's something. I don't care what you put me in. Don't put me around people like that.
Exactly.
I volunteered. I didn't like it when we got back to Okinawa, when I had worked 7 days a week, and then there was nothing for us to do. So you do marching, close order drill stuff in the morning, and then it was go around and police the area, which is pick up cigarette butts and stuff like that. Now you're getting under my skin.
Yeah, you're not just being.
I went right into the chief, senior chief actually, and sat down with him, and I said, is there any other disciplines that need help? I can be a mechanic, if you need, they need help over there. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't want to pick them up. If I smoked them, I'd pick them up, So
Exactly.
if there's anything that's better to be accomplished, I'm in.
Like, how can we make this operation move further?
Well, that might have got me into the CB team. I don't know, but either way, I was. I didn't mind working, but I didn't like make work stuff.
No one does. Like, you don't want to be the guy who's like, you're doing your operational stuff for a while, it's going great, and the next thing you know, you're picking up cigarette butts because there's nothing else to do.
Right.
And it's like, no, there's got to be something else we can do.
Well, they send you to the warehouse and move the stuff from one side to the other side, and a week later you'd be going over and moving it from that side back to the other.
I've done that a
Stuff
lot.
like that,
Yeah.
and busy work, and for me, that was just a waste of
It's a dog and pony
time.
show.
Yeah.
Like, after the service, did you go to college at all?
My last tour of duty in Yap, when I got back from the outer island, and we bought a pig as soon as we got there, a small one. I used to walk it around with a little leash. And we raised it because they knew at the end of the 9-month tour that you're going to have a going away party. So you have a pig roast. Well, we didn't have the facility, but there was a Loran station, Coast Guard Loran station in one of the northern islands. It was like four big islands. So they invited us up there, and they had the facilities, and they had a Filipino guy that knew how to slaughter the pig and prepare it and all that stuff. And they said, okay, you know, they invited us up, and there was a lot more of those guys, and so they had the cooking and the barbecue going and all that stuff, and we decided to have a pickup flag football game.
Oh, that's fun.
And against the Coast Guard. Yeah, it was fun at first, but I was very wiry and very fast and quick. And after I burnt this guy a couple of times, he blindsided me on the side of my knee and hit me and blew out my knee.
Come on.
Yeah, I was furious. And it was that same knee that,
Yep.
you know,
From earlier.
from earlier. And I think about it, I climbed telephone poles. I never had a problem with it until that point.
You play one football game.
And he hit me, and they medevaced me out to Guam, and they just put some kind of a brace on it and said, well, you can go back now. Or I said, no, send me back to Yap. I'll finish out my tour and with the guys. And then when I got back to the States, I had two options because I was past my enlistment. I had to re-up while I was there in Yap. And when I got back to the States, it was either be discharged and you deal with it, or you have. I said, no, I don't have a job. I don't have any medical coverage. How am I going to fix my knee? You know, it was like falling into a hole at that point. As I learned later on, it was my ACL and MCL and all that stuff was torn. But then didn't even know those terms. They didn't have MRI back then. They didn't have all that technology. So, I said, no, I want you guys to fix it before I get out. So I had surgery when I got back to Port Hueneme. And of course, they tried a certain type of surgery that, as they figured out a few years later, didn't work. And I said, I know that. But so when I finally get to the point where I could pick up a little bit of weight, you know, they wanted I wasn't going to re-enlist. You know, it was like they gave you the $10,000, you could go anywhere, you know. And I said, no, I'm done. And flew back home. I actually drove back home. I bought a Volkswagen Beetle from somebody, threw all my stuff in it, and
Wow.
my footlockers and stuff I sent home, and drove across. Met some friends of mine that had gotten out at 4 years, and I was in 4.5. So I stopped in Colorado and Minneapolis and a few places, and
Did the whole road trip.
yeah. And as soon as I got back, I went to the telephone company. I knew that. And power companies. And that was 1975. And in August, September timeframe, and there was no jobs. There was layoffs in all those companies. And they said, we're union, so we have to hire on them back. And we got 3,000 guys laid off right now. We have to hire them back before we can even look at somebody like you. So unfortunately, sorry, you know, it's one of those deals. And my leg was pretty shot anyway. I didn't have a lot of strength in it. Back then, they used to put you in a cast from your ankle to your thigh. So I was in that for a long time. So when it came out, you know, your atrophy in your leg and your muscles was not good. So I said, well, I better use my brain, you know. And so I started going to college at night, working under the table, doing carpentry work and doing whatever.
What school did you go to?
I went to Upper Cape Community at first, at nights, just taking general course. I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. but I knew you had to take all these, what I can't remember, the
Prerequisites.
prerequisites, things like,
Yeah.
history or this or that, or, writing. And so I just took knocked those off. I wanted to get through the first year. And then I went to the VA and took a battery of tests with them. And it was the guy at the end of it, he said, you should go to the Boston Conservatory. And I went, well, what's that? It's like, what was a CB? No. He said, for music. And I went, he said, you play an instrument or anything? I said, no. But I said, but some of the things that you said, you're going, wait, that would be neat to conduct an orchestra or something, just those bizarre questions. He said, well, what were you thinking? And I said, well, I was electrician, and my last tour of duty in the islands, I worked with the corpsmen sometimes, helping natives with wounds. And so he said, well, there's a field called medical electronics engineering, and it's a fairly new field, and it's in Franklin Institute in Boston. I said, I'll do that, So I was getting the GI Bill. I didn't know about disability. Nobody told me that. They didn't tell you anything when you were getting discharged. And so I ended up starting in 1976. And so the nice thing, all the electives I had taken, I was doing my homework when everybody else was taking the electives, when I was in school. So I ended up doing very well with that. Ended up being the class president actually for the class, the whole school.
There you go.
And
it's that leadership mentality that
and
you've
then
always had.
and I was number 2 in the class standing in the medical electronics against a kid that just got out of high school,
Yeah.
And I hadn't touched math or school, stuff for a long time.
So you're excelling in the academic community already.
So I excelled pretty well, and I went to the VA again because I took a battery of tests again with them, and he just kind of looked at me and went, where do you want to go? I said, what do you mean? He said, you're the only one, on those tests, there's always words and questions and all that stuff, but there's always those puzzles that it starts here and there's a gear and it goes around, and then you have to figure out how's it coming up on the other end, or any of those little diagrams that are scattered out through a test. He said, the only one that I ever got those right. There was a certain term what those things are called. He said, I've never seen anybody get them all right.
Wow.
And he
So
said,
already.
I said, what do you mean, where do I want to go? He goes, do you want to go to Harvard? Do you want to go to MIT? Do you want to go to BU? Where do you want to go? I said, geez, I don't know. I said, I was thinking about extending over to BU to get to my bachelor's,
It's a great choice.
And but when I graduated, unfortunately, when I met one of the professors during that summer after I graduated, and I had interviewed with some companies, but I, again, being a little bit older, I guess, my thought was, I never did the on-campus reviews when they had all the companies there and everybody was rotating around.
The big fairs.
I stayed away.
Really?
Yep. And I waited for everybody to come back, and I said, okay, which ones did you like? Which one sounded interesting? I made the phone calls myself. I said, I didn't make it there, but I'd love to come talk to you. So one was Hewlett-Packard, and the other one went with Instrumentation Laboratories for medical equipment up in Lexington, right near Hanscom Field. And so I made an appointment with HR and sat down with her, and I had a great record, and we got to talking, and before I know it, she called over the field service manager and national manager, and I had walked out of there with a job.
It's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, I bypassed I didn't want to be in the mix.
Do you think your experience helped you get all that? Or
Yeah,
just
plus
that
I
and the
was
mentality?
older, I was more mature,
Yeah.
had a good background, and so I got assigned New England area to repair medical equipment, and before you know it, I was pulled in as an instructor. So I was doing that for a while, and then There was a new company starting up. It was called Mansfield Scientific at the time in Mansfield, Mass. And it was a division of Boston Scientific. And they were starting up a cardiology division. And I knew about cardiac computers because I used to repair them. And they needed a field service manager. So I came in, got the job, and had to learn about all kinds of equipment to do with, not to get off on tangents, but intra-aortic balloon pumps, all kinds of mechanical things.
Yeah.
I learned about coronary angioplasty, pacemakers, all the wires and products, and then they were getting into coronary angioplasty was just starting. And so I had to learn all that stuff, but they were going through distributors. So I was the guy that was going out training all the distributors about the products and then going to the hospitals with them because they didn't know the stuff. And they'd put me in front of the doctors and I'd pitch the product.
Yeah.
And they all tried to hire me. And I said no thanks and went back to the company. And I worked very close with the general manager who had all of international. So I got sent to Japan a couple times, and as well as doing all the domestic. And eventually I kept on saying we should go to direct sales, and was my advice to my boss and to the general manager. And they called me in one day and said, we're going to do, the owners heard you, and we're going to have a direct sales force. And I said, great, about time. And they said, you want to do it? And I was an engineer, and I went, I don't know, have to go to sales school or something? How do you know? They said, no, nobody knows it better than you do. Just take a couple of days and go out and figure it out. Pick out some hospitals to go to, but then you have to come back and do everything else you used to do. So you can't, you need to do both.
Can't. Yeah.
So I did. And I actually was answering the phone from the hospital that I was just in when they were ordering the product. And so I was the first sales rep for probably about 6 months before they hired a national sales manager.
So you had a very successful transition right off the bat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. And when they eventually hired a sales force, I was the top 1 or 2 for the first 3 years. In fact, this ring right now is the first diamond ring award. Used to fix my other finger, fix this one, but that's a heart logo on there. So I won it 3 years in a row and was the top rep. I just didn't like the philosophy of this national sales manager couldn't write an S unless it had 2 lines through it. Everything was based on money. For me, it was, I do my job and I'll get money. I don't go out there saying, how can I get money? It was just a totally different,
But you've always had that working mindset since
Right.
being in the service.
If I do my
and
job
continue
right, I
that.
will get paid.
That's it.
Because that was the first time I ever gotten commission, not just the salary. So I ended up winning it, but I ended up, getting, now I had a third of the country in Canada at one point.
Wow.
So I was traveling a lot.
It's very cool.
So I had to educate, help other people. And eventually you meet a lot of people and make a lot bigger company, which was called Medtronic, who developed the pacemaker. They were very big in pacemakers and defibrillators and different areas of cardiology, but they were getting into coronary angioplasty, and they started interviewing me. And once they bought out this big other company, and they gave me a huge guarantee, and I had New England.
Yeah.
And I said, so I moved over to them. They had 401k. They had a lot of things that Boston Scientific didn't at that time. And I was one of the top reps with them for quite a while.
Yeah.
And
so with all your leadership and work experience, have you ever taken that to the American Legion, the VFW, and try to lend that to those guys over there? Get any involvement?
I didn't do it for a long time. I'm assuming once I got my family started, I was traveling a lot. Even when I had all of New England, once I hit the road on Monday, I come back basically on Thursday night, you know, because I had to go from here up to here, staying in hotels, you know, traveling, just doing the job, and then trying to coach Little League and when the kids, you know, trying to do things like that.
That's fun.
So it was, you know, very time consuming, but I was very successful with Medtronic and with them, and ended up, unfortunately, at some point with stage 4 head and neck cancer. I woke up with one morning, and
Oh, no.
yep, I just actually, ironically, went to see my best friend that I was in college with for the 2 years. He was ex-Air Force. He came down with throat cancer, and he worked for GE, and his doctor said, "You got to get your throat checked," and because he had a sore throat for like 3 months and it wouldn't go away, and he ended up having cancer. So I went to see him in Florida, and as I'm leaving him, I went to brush my teeth, and I had lumps on my neck, and I just thought swollen glands. I got back here, and make a long story short, once I had the CT PET scan, fine needle biopsy, right into Dana-Farber, and then tonsillectomy, and they found cancer in my throat, and then there was a fast track to a stomach tube, feeding tube, knowing what's coming, and chemo, radiation for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, and then wait 3 months, and then another scan, and I still had lumps, but they were smaller, and so the guy said, "Well, if it comes back, there's nothing I can do for you." And I said, "Well, what do I do with it?" He said, "Well, cut it. I would suggest cutting it out." So I said, "Well, let's get it done." So they did this side, and then 3 weeks later they did this side. In the meantime, I lost 50 pounds because I had to feed myself through a tube. And then a year after that, it was prostate cancer, and did a lot of research on that, but I couldn't get into any of the protocols because of all what I just went through with chemo and radiation. I wouldn't qualify, so eventually I had that surgery, and you can see on here I've had multiple skin cancer, and I've had 4 or 5 off my face, my cheek, my ear, my arm.
I mean, you're a strong survivor. You know, I've been through a lot.
Well, I tell everybody has a journey,
That's it.
you know, and it's how you approach that journey. I didn't plan on it. If it's my mistake, then I get to face it. But if it's something that comes at you, it is what it is, and okay, you find out the best you can how to tackle it.
That's right.
And okay, well, what do we got to do? Well, I think we should cut this out. Well, then let's cut it out.
You always go right to the solution instead of
Yeah,
just waiting on the problem.
Yeah, okay, try to find a solution, and we'll see how that goes, and hopefully that works. But to get back to your question, I got off on a tangent there, but
It's all right.
I went to the VFW and joined, but it didn't seem like there was much going on in there, you know? It's like the good old boy, the few guys that showed up there, and I mean, they weren't very welcoming, I think, in the first place I went. And then I joined the one in Onset, and it's really archaic, you know, and not much going on, little tiny bar, and it's the same people in there all the time. And I've tried to work with them a little bit, you know. It's like some of these older guys that don't know anything. I mean, if you Google, try to find the Onset VFW, I mean, things you pull up are from 2011, you know. You're trying to find what the schedule, what's going.
So they definitely need some help.
You know, it's just, you know, I mean, a lot of that stuff is just so far behind, and I've had to go around with one of the guys that's kind of in charge, and because in the town hall at Wareham they have little brass plaques of all the people from all the various wars going way back, and mine's on the Vietnam side. My father was over here along with his brother and stuff like that. And my father was a POW, and I pointed it out. I said, it doesn't say POW, although I've seen a couple others that say POW. So then I went over there one time, and his plaque was not only removed, but another name was put in his place.
Oh, no.
And it was out of alphabetical order. So that got me angry. So I said, well, who controls this? Well, the VFW. So I asked the guy, I said, well, you know, it's one thing to remove his tag if you're going to have it redone. I said, to put somebody else's name in his place, you should have left it blank, you know? And so here it is 5 months later, it's still in the same thing. There's always some excuse. The company, the machine broke, you know, so I'm about ready to go back and address that one, you know?
I believe you should.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, out of respect to your father and everything he went
It's respect.
through.
I mean, my father was, like I said, a prisoner of war. For his 90th birthday, I went to the government and asked for a reissuing of all his awards and ribbons from World War II. Ironically, it showed up that Friday afternoon in the mail when the party was Saturday. And that was like a 3-month process, you know, whatever,
Wow.
along.
So it made it right there.
Yeah, it showed up. My cousin was there, who was a 3-tour Vietnam. He said, "Where's his POW medal?" When I was showing everybody. And I said, "Oh." Well, as it turned out, there was no such thing as a POW medal in World War II.
Oh.
It didn't come out, I don't think, until maybe Korea or Vietnam.
Okay.
So I went to Congressman Keating over in Plymouth and reached out to them, and I said, I've got letters, I mean, because it wasn't a DD-214, whatever it was, didn't say that he was a POW on his DD-214 when he got discharged. There was millions of guys getting out at the same time, so there was always oversights. And all of his records were burnt up in St. Louis. But I still have his Stalag 4B POW medal that he had to wear around his neck.
Oh my God.
I got letters from the government to his mother, they were MIA, you know, after he was captured and stuff like that, you know. So the nice thing was they had a big ceremony at the town hall with Keating there, the VFW, all the different people that wanted to get in front of the cameras. He was on Channel 5, and he got his POW, I pinned it on him.
Good.
And then a year later was Bronze Stars he never got either, you know. So we had another smaller cemetery for ceremony for that one.
That's good. He's able to get all that.
Yeah. Well, he earned it, you
did.
know, and he was then invited to an ex-POW meeting in Boston, and he was the only guy from World War II, and we sat up front because he couldn't hear very well, and he was older, and I sat with him. But the guy that was conducting the whole thing, he kind of looked at me because I was answering he said, if it wasn't for you, would he have gotten anything? He didn't get any disability too much, because when he got out of the military, it was like it was over. He never went back to the VA, and because I was going through what I was going through, and I learned about the system, I said, Dad, you got to. So I told the people there in Providence about his situation, and brought him over there. They had a whole day of him seeing all the scars in his chest from TB and and learning his background. He broke down in front of the psychiatrist when the guy came running out and said, "Did you ever see your father cry?" And I went, "No." Wow. He said he broke down in about 5 minutes when I started asking him questions. Because there was people killed all over. He should have been killed like, I don't know how many times. And that's a whole nother long story we could go down.
Yeah, I mean, with that being said, as we close up here, is there anything you want to say to our listeners about any advice or anything about like your military career that you want to share before we close out this interview?
Well, personally, I mean, I think any young man, if they're not going off to college, they not too sure where they're headed, they should go in the military. And It's almost like it should be almost like Israel does. I mean, it's almost like you should go for 2 years, then go to college if you want to, and maybe the government will help you pay for that, you know. But you learn so much about discipline and teamwork and hard work and giving back, and I just think, I mean, it was a great experience. I wouldn't change a thing that I went through. I'm very proud of what I went through and what my father went through. So you learn a lot, and you look at things a little bit differently than you would if you didn't have that discipline.
Absolutely.
You know?
All right. Well, thank you, Richard. It's
Yeah.
been amazing speaking with you. This was fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.